Hello, my name's Michael, and this is All Departments.
Here come the cherries, and we're heading for the top of the tree. Bournemouth is a team that's going to show Division 3. Here come the leaders and the scorers at the Saturday, showing how to win the Southern way. So we sing, come on Bournemouth, come on Bournemouth. While you're out there winning, hear the shouting and the singing. We sing, come on Bournemouth, come on Bournemouth. Here come the cherries, here come the cherries, here come the cherries, number one.
Hello and welcome to All Departments. It's fair to say there have been one or two differences of opinion between Bournemouth and Watford fans in recent times following our epic battle for the Championship title last season. But regardless of the at times lively debate between both clubs' sets of supporters regarding the circumstances that led to the most glorious day in our Champion Cherries history, one man who's always guaranteed to have even the most fractious amongst us nodding in agreement is former goal machine Luther Blissett. I met up with Luther before the recent draw with the Hornets, and we look back at the seasons he spent on the South Coast. Luther, welcome to All Departments.
Oh, lovely to be here, eh? Lovely. Always nice to come back to this beautiful sunny place.
Yeah, it's still quite bright in early October at Dean Court today. Many years ago, nearly 30 years ago, you signed for Bournemouth from Watford. I was still at school then. I remember being quite surprised because you'd had a pretty stellar career, starring in the First Division for Watford, and obviously you spent a year in Italy as well, and England caps and hat-tricks for your country. Can you remember how the transfer came about?
Well, it all really transpired after Graham Taylor went to Aston Villa as manager. We had a season when Dave Bassett took over, which didn't go particularly well. And Dave Bassett left, I think it was about the January time of that season. And they brought in, I think Colin Lee took over for a little while. I may have got that wrong. But then Steve Harrison came in. Steve Harrison decided he wanted to build a team of younger players, whatever. You know, we had people like Malcolm Allen, Ewan Roberts, and those young lads that come to the youth system, you know, and they were showing good promise and whatever. So he wanted to give them the best opportunity. And so he said to me at the beginning of that season, he said, look, you're going to be limited chances to get in the first team because I'm going to persevere with the young players. But I've always been brought up that, you know, what you do is if the opportunity's there, then you fight for your place. So initially I started the season thinking, right, I'll show him that I'm still able to do a job. But it never really worked out that way, and so I played in reserve games every Saturday, which was good because, you know, then reserve team football for me was the next best thing to being in the first team because you played in the main stadium and you played on a Saturday afternoon at 3 o'clock, and you know, you played with players that were coming back from injury, or you know, some young lads who were showing good promise who didn't play in the youth team in the morning. So no, you had a good mix, and you had it was good preparation for young players to get into the first team, and it was good for you as an older player to play with those young, with your passing experience, plus, you know, it's a chance for you to really show people that you still can do your job. So that was good for me. And it came around after we played, on that Saturday we played at home to Millwall. I think it was Millwall we played at home on the Saturday. And I heard that Bournemouth were watching me anyway. But that honestly didn't make a lot of difference to me because I go out and I always try and do the very best I can anyway. So, you know, I scored twice that day and I won the game 3-0 or whatever it was. And then I heard on the Monday that they, you know, they wanted me to sign or at least come and see him.
And so you dropped into the second division, as we were then, and for many years that was the high point for this club in terms of its time in the Football League.
Absolutely, yeah.
Did it feel like a drop down going to a lower division?
No, not to me, because I think if you're doing it for the right reasons, it doesn't come into it. And having come and seen Bournemouth play, because I came and watched them the following weekend. I came up and actually watched Bournemouth play because I wanted to see what was there, you know, to really convince me if it's the right thing to do. And you know, I saw the likes of obviously you've got big Trevor Aylott up top, you know, and I've always played a big target man, so I thought, yeah, that I could make that work. And in midfield you had Sean. God, you'll kill me. I can see his face now. Sean Brooks, and he'll kill me as well. Actually, he's now in America. I bumped into him actually in America. Ian Bishop, yeah. And what two talented midfield players you got there, And so I looked at him and I thought, going forward, could score goals here if it all come off right. So I watched the game and I thought, this would really suit me well because of the way they play football. Opportunities were going to be there for me to do what I like doing, scoring goals or getting chances. So I decided, and plus it's a fantastic part of the world.
Some strikers take a little while to find their feet in a new team. This was never something you suffered from. I think you scored on quite a lot of your debuts.
I've been actually I scored on every one of my debuts, to be fair, yeah.
So a very good record. I think you scored against Barnsley in the first game. We lost.
And that was away, and that was after a horrendous coach journey, which I was in the coach. I actually drove up behind the coach on the Friday, and I think it took something like about 7 hours to get there. So I was 7 hours stuck behind the coach going to the game. And and then we got beat. We got beat 3-1, 3-2 or something. And I scored anyway, which was always nice. And then obviously look forward to the game on a Tuesday night, which will be the home game against Hull. Yeah,
and that was the one that really set the standard for what you would achieve whilst you were here. There's lots of goals in the time you were at Dean Court, and that one is well remembered. I know you've written about it in the Match of My Life book, which came out this week. We won 5-1. You scored 4 of the goals.
I did, yeah. I scored 4, and it could have been 5 because just before half time, I remember the ball flashed across the box. I came in, and probably just didn't concentrate properly on it, and then I put it over the bar from about 6-8 yards. Put it over the crossbar, and I really should have scored. And but that was disappointing. But it never anything that ever worried me. Because I'd make sure I'd get fashion or find another chance, and I'd put that on.
You went on, I think, when I had a look in my book of statistics before I met you today, to score in the first 5 league games you were at the club. So you're an immediate hit with the fans. Did that make it much easier for you to settle at the club?
Well, it always does. I think it's all well and good you going to a club and playing well. The most important if you're a striker is that you score goals, and if you score goals, then the supporters take to you better because they see you as somebody that can help the club progress and win more games and that sort of thing. So everybody's always very upbeat when they see you, and when you're on the pitch and when the team's playing, they always believe that there's a goal coming, and that's very, very important. So for me, the thing is to stick the ball in the back of the net, and if you're making chances, then people always come to see that, because football is about the 2 goals at either end of the pitch. All that stuff goes in the middle is great to watch, but the thing that really excites people is when the ball hits the back of the net.
Just tell us a bit about what you found here when you arrived at Dean Court, because you played obviously a year in Italy, and I read that you made some changes to things like your diet and so forth, and also we had Harry Redknapp here at the club. What was he like to work with?
Well, Harry, I found out when I got here wasn't really a coach. Harry's a manager in the true sense of managing, because Harry will pick the players that he sees, and he'd have a very clear picture in his mind of how he sees it with players all gelling together and whatever. And then in his conversations and planning with his coaches, and then give it to coaches and say, right, make it work. This is what I want. And Harry's thing was to pick players at a time which he could trust to go out and do a job. And I think having seen and heard, sort of what I'd done in my career, he felt that I was the right player to come in and do that. And so for me, I just came and just got straight into it with the players. And my first thing when I go anywhere is to impress upon the other players that I'm not here for a holiday. I'm here to do it properly, and I try to conduct myself in the right way. So I'll train the right way and prepare and everything exactly the same as I always done. And that did rub off on a lot of the players, thankfully, and I think that's why we started to have a little bit of success over a period of time.
And did they have what you might certainly today think of as perhaps not, you don't have to name names, but not good habits in terms of preparation?
No, they wouldn't. I mean, no, for quite a few of them, they were of that lower division mentality, and it needed to change. The first thing it needed to change for their own health. Secondly, for the benefit of their football, and then obviously for the club, because as you improve on those things, your ability to perform at a higher level goes up. and you can prolong that for a longer period of the season. So that gives your club a chance of success. So that's what happened as the players started to get hold of that and realise they couldn't go out drinking and couldn't go out partying and that sort of stuff as much, and knuckled down and got themselves fit and actually worked at keeping themselves fit and working at their training a bit more.
Yeah, it must have done the trick, because that season, I think you came in November, and personally you scored, I think, something like 19 or 20 goals, and you weren't here for the whole season. We finished 12th, which I already said was, for many years, our highest finish in the Football League. So at the end of that season, yourself and the other members of the squad must have been quite optimistic for the season that was coming up next.
Yeah, I was looking forward to the next season, because you knew the manager would bring in one or two other players. But it didn't quite work out that way. I think, you can bring players in, and this is always the dilemma when the manager brings players in, then you can look at all through football, and not every one of the players that you bring in are going to be a success. And probably at that time, it was probably not enough of the players that came in were at that level that they needed to be to enable the club to then keep going and take the next step forward.
We started out okay, and I think we were well in touch around Christmas time, perhaps even after that, but we lost quite a lot of players to injury. In defence, Sean Teal, Paul Morrell, John Williams, possibly Kevin Bond was out for a while. Yeah. Paul Molden was sold because I think he had issues, shall we say, with Sean Teal in training.
Yeah.
Was that really where it started to go wrong, when the key players started to go down?
It did. If you lose, you mentioned that again, that is literally your back four that's gone. And you're having to put together players now that normally wouldn't play together, especially in the first team together. And so, you do tend to concede one or two goals, which puts a lot of pressure then on the creative side of the team to score enough goals. And, if you score 2 goals away from home, you expect at least to walk away with a draw. But you'd end up losing games like that as well, and it would be, in a way, that just saps away at the morale of the entire team. And it just makes it more difficult for you to go out here and get your next result. And, it transpired that we did get relegated in that season.
But you were never injured. I think you missed one game the entire time you were at Bournemouth. You may have been substituted a couple of other times. Was that some good fortune that was throughout your career, or was that just...
No, I think pretty much throughout my career, the injuries I've had have been quite serious ones. I've had a fractured skull, broke my kneecap into 2 pieces, and a couple of other little things like that. But, when I've been out for injuries, I've been out for like a month, 2 months. My kneecap one was 4 months I was out with that. But I got back, and, I think the level that I got my fitness to enabled me to recover and get back into playing very, very quickly, and it stayed that way. I think that highlighted to me more than anything else through my career, because Graham Taylor insisted that his teams were very fit, and that definitely helped me through my career to recover from injuries and also to avoid injuries, because you pick up most of your injuries in the last sort of 20 minutes of games, and if you're fitter than the opposition, you're quicker mentally and physically than them, and so you can avoid getting into that position when people are getting tired and they're very lunging tackles. You can avoid them and not get the injuries that you do. So the last part of the game, rather than play in front of them, you get behind them more, and you find that they just can't live with you.
As you said, we were relegated that season, and the game that everyone remembers was the one on the very last day of the season against
Leeds United. Yes, what a weekend that was. To this day, I cannot imagine. I still cannot understand why the powers that be allowed that game to be played on a bank holiday weekend in Bournemouth. I just cannot understand it. It should never ever have happened, that one. Never.
I've spoken to a couple of the players from the squad. I'm not sure if they actually played in the game. Sean Teal, John Williams, and they've shared their personal memories of that day. Do you remember much about the events around the stadium or during the game itself?
All around the place. It was happening all over the town, and that it was really a shocking. And you talk about dark days for football. That really was a dark weekend for football. And obviously for us, it ended the game. That we got beaten. We ended up getting relegated that game. But it was just an awful weekend. None of us even drove our cars here. We all got taxis in or whatever. And just because you knew, some of the people coming to watch the game, the sort of people they were, and they just wanted to inflict harm on everybody around them. So it was a bit of a shame. And it was dark days for Leeds United. That was in their support and for football.
Do you think it affected our Bournemouth's performance on the day, on the pitch?
Yeah, no, it has to. Because again, when you when you're at a club such as Bournemouth that predominantly been in the lower divisions in its sort of in existence, those games, cup ties, they come and go and they're a different thing altogether. But when it becomes a league game and it becomes a normal sort of thing, and you're experiencing that really for the first sort of time, it's difficult. And I think a lot of the players were no doubt affected by it because we didn't perform nowhere near to what we have been. Even in games that we'd been losing, we didn't really perform on that day at all.
Yeah, it's definitely a dark day for the club, and one that luckily hasn't been repeated. And then until we were relegated, you stayed with the club for another season. We were in Division 3. We've already talked about the decision you made to come to Bournemouth whilst we're in the second division. You were previously at Watford and at Milan. So going down to play in the third division, it must have been a bit different playing just in terms of the style of play and also the experience in the stadiums and the whole thing.
I know you say that, but let's not forget, I started when Watford were in the fourth division. That's where I started playing football. I started playing the fourth division and worked my way from 4-3-2 to 1. So, to me, it doesn't matter too much what division you're in, as long as the players around you, the team, off the field, the management and staff and everybody are all wanting to do the best for the club. As long as that, I don't care what division we're in, because we go out there as a team together. And we'll fight whatever battle we need to fight together, and that's the most important thing for me is you've been able to do that.
You continued to score that season, and your record at Bournemouth possibly was the best goals ratio in your entire career. I think you played 121 league games, scored 56 goals, and I remember you as a strong, athletic, powerful centre forward. Would that be an accurate description of your style?
Yeah, because, the thing is about most things, you've got to recognise in yourself what your strengths are, because that's how you become good at anything. Even if you work in an office or whatever you do, you need to understand what your strengths are. And that's one of the things I learned very early on, what my strengths were. I knew that I had good pace, and I knew that an eye for goal as well. And so you try and get yourself in as many positions as possible, as often as possible, so you can exploit that. And they're the sort of things that I worked on, and as I said, being fit and being strong, you need to do that, especially when you're playing against, because them days centre-halves were like 13, 14 stone, and they could attack you from behind and all sorts. So, you had to be strong to be able to deal with all of that. And, so it was never anything that sort of worried you too much once you've been hit once or twice, because you realise and, you adapt and your body more prepared for it.
You must have had tremendous confidence when the goals were flying in. But was that something you always had in your career in terms of when you were faced with a goal-scoring situation or before a game? Did you always believe that you were going to score in
every time I walk out on the pitch, I think I'm going to score at least one goal today, because I know I'm going to get one or two chances, and I try to get 3-4 chances every game. Because they're not all going to go in for whatever reason. Some days it's just that you're just not on it, and the old rifle sights ain't quite lined up. But it's you're going to get those days, so you try and create as many opportunities as possible, and then you're hoping you'll take one or two of those.
And then at the end of that season, Harry left, I think, Tony Pulis came in, and you also left. Did you want to carry on playing for Bournemouth, or was it that Watford came in and it was too good to resist to go back to your old?
I think it was more the point when Tony again came in, and Tony wanted his own sort of team. As when you're starting out in your managerial career, you want, and sometimes senior players like myself, they can be seen as a bit of a problem to the manager coming in, because we are sort of sometimes a bit stuck in our ways and the way we want to do things and the way we see things. And the manager being, around about the same sort of age anyway, so it was one of those things, and Tony decided really that, there was going to be no place here in the team for me. I could do pre-season here, but, the best thing for me to do is find another club. So when Watford came in, then, it was sort of, that was the right thing to do for me, to go back to Watford.
Yeah, Tony Pulis had a good career in management, but he didn't have the greatest starts at Bournemouth, and I think it's been a surprise to some of us over the years, the success that he's had. Well,
I see you say that, but I think he learned his craft here, because I remember coming back and watching, because Effin and Peter Shearer and one of those were all still here playing, and I came back and watched one or two of the games here. And one of the most noticeable thing about when Tony took over was really the back four. Fullbacks never crossed the halfway line. They sat there and they just didn't want to give goals away. And it's a good way if you're doing that, if you're scoring lots of goals. If you're not scoring lots of goals, then regardless of how tight you are at the back, the opposition are going to create one or two chances somewhere. And if they take it and then you don't have it to go forward, then you have a problem. And I think that was the sort of thing that Tony was really worked through, his first few years as a manager. Because after that, he went to Gillingham and places, and he organised the defences very well, and it was very difficult to beat, and they would score goals at the other end.
Fast forwarding to the present day, you have returned to Dean Court today. Last season we had a bit of an epic battle with Watford throughout the course of the season. We both got promoted in the end. You must have been delighted.
It was. I mean, I said to people, in fact, I said it here because the game was quite... was it here? I said it here, but I also said it quite early on in the season. So the ideal scenario for me this season, I said, would be for Bournemouth and Watford to get promotion. I said, who wins it, don't care, because you're both in the Premier League. At the end of the day, that's the important thing. And so as it came going, and it was asked here back in January actually, January the 29th, whatever it was, on Friday. I said, I had an interview and I said no, I feel the two teams, the champions are going to be one of these two, and they're both going to go up this season. I said, for me that would be fantastic to have two of my, and they are my clubs in the Premier League at the same time.
And it must be a pleasure for you to come back to Bournemouth and to see the old faces, and still, when you walked in today, I met you outside and fans coming up asking for your autographs. It must be great to have that kind of experience at your old clubs. It
is, and again, you only have that sort of experience because what you've done for them and for the club. That's the only reason why they would, because if you were one of those that weren't a success, they wouldn't be too bothered. But because, you've left a mark because of the success and, the goals I've scored and whatever, then people do want to know you and they want to talk to you, because they are you come to football for those moments when the ball hits the back of the net, or, it's a great tackle, or it's a great save, but generally it's for, to see the ball hit the back of the net. And, I think football supporters really enjoy that. And at Bournemouth, I've not sort of had that sort of success in that sort of division before. It was a fantastic time, So now, being in the Prem now and starting the way they have done, and still playing in the manner that we all love to see them playing, absolutely amazing. And Matt Ritchie's goal the other day was just unbelievable.
Yeah, we've had a few injuries. Callum Wilson's gone down. He's out for what looks like most of the season.
That's right. It's a horrible thing. Football is a very, very cruel game. You think last season you can count the injuries or whatever you had on probably 4 fingers the entire season, and this new season just started, and what's happened already? It's outrageous, and losing people. You never lost a play from the back four last year at all, which made it very solid and very predictable what you're doing at the back, so everybody knew, and it was great. But this season, the Premier League is probably the worst place for it to start early on, is to lose so many players, because you need to get a good foothold into the Premier League so that you can get that base to go forward and do what Bournemouth can do. And Bournemouth are able to score goals probably against 90% of the teams in this division, I think, no doubt about it. Your Chelseas and those at the top, no, they're a bit difficult, but everybody else, Bournemouth are able to score goals and generally probably keep the ball out the other end, so it gives them a great chance to stay up.
Yeah, it's a shame we can't get you to put your boots back on and bang a few in.
I'll tell you what, if I was 30 years younger, I'd love it. I'd be too old then.
Just one last thing, Luther. I have very vague memories of there being a Luther Blissett sports shop.
Yeah, I did have a shop here for a little while. Because again, I was just having a connection with the town, and I thought, it was just really just selling the club's kit and bits and pieces. So I did that for a little while, but never really made any money out of that, so binned it.
Yeah, well, it's a shame it's not still there, but you've had many other things to occupy you over the years since you left Dean Court. It's been great to talk to you today. Thanks ever so much for coming on the show, and hopefully we'll see you at Dean Court again soon.
Hopefully.
Boss scum, back of the net, 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 boss scum, back of the net.
Fantastic to speak to Luther, and I'm especially appreciative as he gave his time freely despite being delayed in traffic on his way to Dean Court. Don't forget, you can listen to all previous podcast interviews by visiting the archives section of the All Departments website at www.alldepartments.wordpress.com. If you want to get in touch, you can email alldepartmentspodcast@gmail.com, and you can follow on Twitter at alldepartments. That's about all for now. Only a few days until the international break comes to an end, and the nation's favourite team returns to the field of play in search of Premier League glory. So up the cherries in all departments, and goodbye.